Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is a brand new video to the channel. It's a 1-bar Magicka DK build. People want to play the magdk. They've always loved fire and burning and all that kind of shit, but unfortunately it can feel a little tricky for some, and it's falsely pushed out there that the only way to play a 1-bar build is to use a lightning staff and sergeant and stormmaster. It's not. Those are good options, but that's not the only way to play a 1-bar build. And this build is using none of that. None of that shit at all. So, if you want a fire-breathing magdk with 1 bar, utilizing a flame staff all day long, you are in the right place. Now, we're going to go straight into the stats first of all, just like we normally do, and then we're going to jump into the gear, because obviously that's the important part for most. So, first of all, we want to make sure that our potion is running, and we're done. That's it. So, we are sitting on 32.9k max magicka, 22.6k max health, and 13k max stamina. We're sitting on 1k recovery and almost 1.1 for magicka, and we've got 4.6k spell damage with 50% crit chance. Our pen is very high because we're using a lot of light armor, and our resistance is across the board at 21.1, almost 21.2, and almost 17k on physical as well. So we're not too bad in the resistance areas. In actual fact, with these buffs being with us all the time, we're actually really, really high. We don't have a minor resistance buff with us though, so that can go a lot higher. And if you get into a group that has lots of resistance bonuses from sets and such that stack on top of each other, you can end up essentially being a tank halfway through content just by having those available. But on the surface, you're actually quite tanky on your own. The crit chance can actually go up in content, so don't worry about that at the moment. That can go up to 56. And of course, our health can go up if you've got a warden in your group. There's lots of ways that you can still push your setup. Not to mention, of course, the 4.6k spell damage is flat and raw with us the whole time. And that can go up in content, but you're never going to go less than that. 64 points into max magicka, and we've got all these buffs and bonuses, which are absolutely mega. Thief Munderstone, flat food all day long. Bear in mind, by the way, that flat food is actually this stuff here. It is, it's gone, where's it gone? Here. It is flat health, flat magicka food. There are 3 different variants to that. You'll actually get 5.3k max health and 4.9k max magicka. You can, of course, go with the gold shiny citrus fillet stuff if you like, or fillet if you're from the UK. And that is up to you. That will lessen your magicka, that will lessen your health, but you will gain from health recovery and mag recovery if you are feeling like you're a bit low. Failing that, you could just heavy attack. Generally speaking, though, our sustainability is actually pretty good on this off the bat, but again, you can alter stuff to suit your playstyle if you prefer, or maybe your group can bring buffs and bonuses anyway. So, now that we've got that out of the way, we are looking at the shiny stuff. Of course, the gear. Now, there are options. Lots of options. So, first of all, I deliberately forced myself into an area where we've got a limited amount of constraints to be able to design a build around those to then deliver to a correct audience, the correct target audience. This is technically for anyone, so the least experienced player all the way up to the most experienced player. Everyone's going to get something out of this, but I consider the overall average player when I'm making something like this. I want you to be able to perform very, very well, but I also want to make sure that it's not too confusing. So we're going to use something that will benefit you on this build that will mean you don't have to micromanage too much too often. So what we're using first of all is Elfbane. I know it's been used on DKs for a long time. It doesn't generally give you any more damage output, but it does make your skills last longer. That gives you more time to figure out what to do in between. Our flame abilities last longer by 5 seconds if they're damage over time. And of course, well, if they're duration based, and of course, that means that your sustainability is now easier because you don't have to cast things as often. And of course, the fight can feel less panicky. So if you have a flame AoE on the ground that would last 10 seconds, it now lasts 15. If it lasted 20, it now lasts 25. If 25, it now lasts 30. You've got that time to think, and your damage is constantly ticking for free. You don't have to spam too much to get those back in place. You've got loads and loads of time to think about it. In the meantime, we have got something that is quite new, so we'll go over that in a minute, but you need to make sure you put this on the staff. So your staff counts as 2 pieces, precise with a poison damage glyph. That is done on purpose. Do not put flame there. Also, 2 jewelry pieces of the same set. That will give us up to 4 pieces there. Bloodthirsty on all of them. You can go with magicka recovery with weapon and spell damage if you prefer, but if you feel like you need more stamina recovery because you need to block and break all that stuff, you can go with a weapon and spell damage glyph of the physical kind instead, and that will give you stam recovery, but that's up to you. I would say mag recovery because the magdk is quite stressful sometimes if you're spamming. But 2 pieces is the staff, 2 pieces of the jewelry, and the chest. The chest, because of the resistances, the chest actually has the highest resistance bonus of any other body piece in the game. So a heavy chest is going to be more optimal for you, but if you have it somewhere else, it's not the end of the world. It's entirely up to you. Magicka and Divines, easy peasy. Now again, bear in mind, this doesn't work with beamed or channeled abilities, but anything that is a damager over time or duration-based flame ability, this will enhance it. So that is all you're doing here, is you are just boosting your flat bonuses from the set, and you are boosting the duration. Now, when it comes to damage output, literally raw damage, you got this. This is a very new set for the new DLC. If you've got ESO Plus, then you've got access to this. If you don't, then of course you need to get the DLC. There are other options, don't panic. But we're using 5 pieces of this. So the helmet and some body pieces. Again, in any order you like, it's up to you. But this is going to help you with more resist because the heavy pieces here. This is quite simple. Spell damage, and offensive pen. As you'll see, we haven't got any crit bonuses apart from precise here. Spell damage, more spell damage, more spell damage. It's all flat. But when you deal damage over time, which we will because we're using those skills and making them last longer, you will actually do damage, flame damage in fact, every 3rd tick of damage over time that you do. And this scales off of your weapon and spell damage and applies a burn and status effect by default. Like, as soon as this procs, you get a burn and status effect. That's really beneficial to us, not just because burn and status effects are damage over time and fire, and of course extended by this, so it's a massive uptime, but it also benefits us in our Dragonknight passives, which we'll come to later. Now, this says every 3rd tick. It's not every 3rd tick of that skill, or that skill, or that skill. It's every 3rd tick full stop. So if you stack loads and loads of dots, and they all do a tick at the same time, that's 3. There's your proc. 3 again. There's your proc. This can actually happen every second, or even faster, depending on your rate of fire from your damage over time. It's really, really nuts. So this will be doing damage the whole time you are in a fight. And that constant burn and status effect is very, very nice. So make sure you get this as soon as you can. If you can, you don't have to go into vet. You can just go into normal. The set is exactly the same regardless. There's no benefit to getting the veteran drop over the normal drop. You can just go and pick it up and upgrade it. Now, obviously, they're purple instead of blue, but that's it. You can upgrade it and make it exactly the same. Now, other options. If you are a little more advanced, but you still want to use a 1-bar build style, you can. You can go and change Elfbane if you're more advanced, and you can replace it, believe it or not, with Reliquin. Now, you don't want to put this on the body because it's a medium set and it will affect your sustainability for this particular build. With everything being Magicka, you want to make sure you've got the recovery from the passives. So you don't want this on the body. Put it on the staff. Yep. Reliquin staff. Most people don't use the weapons because you got to bar swap it and then you'll lose your stacks. You can't lose a stack on a 1-bar build. So you can use Reliquin on the body piece for the chest. That's the only one that counts. The body piece for the chest in replacement of this. And you can use the Inferno staff, and you can use 2 jewelry pieces. Same traits and everything, but you'll gain a couple of crit bonuses, and of course you'll have lots and lots of extra damage over time as long as you keep up your light attacks or heavy attacks. Very powerful set. If you can use it, great. If you can't, don't. You've got 2 options with Reliquin: practice or take it off. If you're not very good at it, you're not going to maintain those stacks, you're not going to benefit from the proc, use something else. Now, this is where it gets really tricky. You can, of course, swap Elfbane for Deadly and get more flat damage if you want. But your dots are going to be shorter, so you're going to have to maintain your rotation with a little bit more attention paid. Same goes for Reliquin as well. If you do swap out Elfbane as a basic set, these are going to make things a little bit faster paced. You're going to have to watch your resources and watch your bars more often. But what you can also do is you can go with Morag Tong. While this sounds a little bit weird, this actually doesn't give you any less damage than Elfbane. This does give you less damage than Reliquin, of course, but this will give your whole group, if you are doing damage to the target, which is basically all we need to do, increased poison damage, 10% in fact, and disease. So for the DKs out there, the stam DKs, the bow users using lethal arrow if you like, you've got warden skills, you've got the Nightblade, which excels at disease damage, you've got the Necromancer, which does poison and disease damage as well. Anyone using any of those skills and your own poison glyph will benefit. That is not on the dummy. And most people don't bring it to the group because they don't know where to put it. Well, you're not going to lose any damage swapping out Elfbane for this. You're actually going to gain. But remember, your rotation will be shorter. So that is a very, very solid option if you want to do that. And this is where it twists things up a little bit. The DK tends to bring more fire damage to the group, a buff, which we'll go into in the skills. This brings more poison damage to the group. So you're bringing both poison and fire bonuses to your group. Now, one more thing you can do, and this is entirely up to you. If you don't have rune covers, blaze, do not worry. There are so many options in the game that you can use. Lots and lots of things were tested, but some of the really cool ones, which you can get from other areas. You've got Overwhelming, which makes your sustainability absolutely bonkers. You just have to keep doing what you're doing, and you'll constantly do shock damage to targets and get Magicka back. Great set. Not really high in performance in comparison to this as far as damage is concerned. You will lose about 5 or 6k DPS, but it's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, and you won't run out of resources. Very, very nice indeed. Mad Tinkerers wasn't too bad, but Flame Blossom was the closest one to this. So if you have access to this instead, or you just want to go for that because you preference it, this is actually a very nice set. Good flat damage, bursts in fire in a straight line in front of you once every 10 seconds with a guaranteed burn and status effect. Again, if you use an Elfbane already, that burn and status effect is going to last almost as long as the cooldown on this actual set. So you're going to have full control of that too. So again, the choice is yours. We'll quickly recap over this again. Elfbane and Rune Carvers all day long. If you want to change the main set from Elfbane, go with Deadly, Morag Tongue for more buffs for the group, or Reliquin for more single target. And on the body, again, you're not restricted. Use whatever you like, really, but Overwhelming or Flame Blossom were very good choices. Again, this will all be on the website, so it's entirely up to you what you want to use. Slime Claw on the shoulder, obviously, because it's the highest one-piece crit bonus in the game, excluding the mythic item, but we can't use 2 mythics at once. And of course, we've got the one ring with all those buffs and bonuses on them. So if you don't have them in your group already, you've got them. Bear in mind, you've got Major Brutality and Prophecy, Savagery, and Sorcery on this set. So you do not need magic pots to keep that up. You can just use tripods all day long, and that will help you with your survival, your stam, maintenance, and your Magicka all at once. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Okay, now we're going to get into skills. These will look a bit funky on their tooltip, but don't worry. The Elfbane set only actually applies when you're in combat. So that's not going to show you exactly what happens here, so I'll demonstrate that in a moment. This here in the Ardent Flame skill line is your bread and butter skill. It starts off as Sear and Strike, morph it to Burn and Embers, attach it to the target, leave it running. While it's running over that 24-second period, which is long already, you will do damage every 2 seconds, and you will heal for 108% of the damage done, not including minor or major, well, actually minor is already included, but not including major mending, vitality, all that kind of stuff that can enhance your healing received and healing done. That is what it will do at the moment. It can be enhanced if you get buffs from other people. But this used to be different. It used to consider how much damage you do in total over the period of time, and then you could restart it or kill the enemy, and you'd claim the heal at the end. Now, this is every 2 seconds, and there is another twist to this. If you want an emergency heal, restart the skill, because the initial hit and the first tick combine to give you both damage amounts at the same time in the form of a heal, and you can, in combat, depending on buffs and bonuses, heal in excess of 20k per recast, and it's really, really handy as an oh shit button if you're close enough to do so. But generally speaking, if you're not going for the big heal, keep this running the whole time. As soon as it's about to run out, recast it. On initial cast, it guarantees a burn and status effect as well, so you've got really long damage over time on top of that, if you consider your Elfbane. As you can see there, that says 24 seconds. As soon as we're in combat, that will change to 29 seconds. And all the rest of the skills that are damage over time also contribute from that. So that's absolutely bonkers. Keep this running. Now, I can already hear the screams. What about Venomous Claw, the poison variant of this? Can you use that instead? 100% yes, you can. Of course you can. And yes, it does do more damage. Even with fire boosting bonuses on the target, this will do less than Venomous Claw. However, obviously, if you've got Morag Tongue, that will enhance Venomous Claw even more, which is nuts. That is the highest single target damage over time ability in the game because of the way of its scales. It does get more aggressive every 2 seconds, but there is a downside. The downside to using that morph over this is you will no longer get that heal. So that's a very risky choice. If you want 2 to 3k extra DPS top end, sure, go with the other morph. But if you want to stay alive, I would go with this one. It is a lot safer. So that is a risk versus reward option there. Your choice. Next up is Unstable Wall of Elements. This is quite simple. This is an Destro Staff skill line. Starts off as Wall of Elements, morph it to Unstable Wall of Elements if you want the one that explodes at the end. Now here it will say magic damage and it will say 10 seconds, but in actual fact, the weapon you're using determines the outcome of this. So lightning does one effect, ice does another, fire does another. Fire has some really big benefits actually. If a target is burning inside of this wall, this skill will do more damage. And since we're going to have burn and status effects all the time, that's pretty much guaranteed. Now, this does pop at the end, or if you restart the skill, it will explode. But if you're not too worried about the explosion itself, then you can go with the other morph. It does last a lot longer, and it's much easier to micromanage. Also, as you can see, 10 seconds there is not really 10 seconds. It's actually, due to Elfbane, 15. So now you only have to cast it twice every 30 seconds rather than 3 times, which is much better for your sustainability if you're worried. So again, a choice of gear will determine how easy this is to use. Engulf and Flames is next in the Ardent Flame skill line. Starts off as Fiery Breath, morph it to Engulf and Flames. Much like the Burning Embers, this is a single target damage over time ability, but it does affect multiple. So this, with it being a debuff type, because it does apply a bonus to your group while attached to the target, anything like that, whether it's a major or minor debuff, whatever, will actually affect 6 targets maximum. The initial burst will hit infinite amount, regardless of how many's there, but the actual stuck to target debuff or bonus will hit 6. Each target will have that damage over time damage done to it over 24 seconds, but again, with Elfbane, that's actually 29. All you need to do is make sure you have enough weapon and spell damage to make this cap out. And at cap, this will improve everyone's fire damage on target by up to 6%. As you can see, without any buffs or bonuses, because of the way we've set up, we've got that maxed all the time. So just maintain this on target, you're good to go. Do not recast it too often because it is going to get expensive. Just let it run its course and don't let it have any gaps if you can. So these 3 are now your main skills for damage. You need to keep them up all the time. 1 on single target, 1 on the target plus surrounding ones, and 1 on the ground in front of you. Remember, if the target moves, move this with it. Next up is our main spammable, Flame Lash. Lava Whip to start with, morph it to Flame Lash. The other variation was tested heavily, but due to the way that it micromanages certain bonuses that come with it, it was not really usable for most players on this particular build and basically made you overspam stuff you didn't want to overspam. So it was somewhat redundant in comparison. But for the purpose of this setup, this is actually very, very nice. It does do really good damage in single target. All you basically need to do is light attack, hit, light attack, hit, light attack, hit, while your dots are running. So dots down, spam this with light attacks. Easy peasy. But it does come with a big benefit. If the target is off balance, during that time, all of your whip casts will do a wicked backflip and you will do more damage from it. It will cost half the resources and you will heal. That heal is huge. If you are really, really into your rotation, as long as you play aggressive and you keep your dots and damage going while spamming this, if someone knocks that off balance, you are going to hit really hard and you're going to heal like hell. So again, this is your emergency heal and passive heal all the way through while doing damage, but this can really help escalate your survival when it gets really, really tough and people start throwing wall horns and off balance and all that kind of stuff out. Eruption, finally. In the Earth and Heart skill line, starts off as Ash Cloud, morph it to Eruption, not the other one. The other one heals. Now, this is a burst area of effect damage hit initially on the ground. Then everyone inside of this will take damage every 1 second, and it's got a nasty snare attached to it too. Technically, this lasts 18 seconds, but with the Elfbane set, it actually lasts 23. You don't want to keep recasting this really because it just charges by the second, not by reapplying it, so it doesn't really make a huge difference there. But also the eruptive damage, the initial hit, actually can only be applied once every 10 seconds. So if you keep recasting this for no good reason, you're not actually going to get anything out of it. So let it run its course. Technically speaking, if you were really careful with micromanaging, you could recast it every 10 seconds to get the burst, but then your Flame Whip is actually going to do more single target anyway, so there's no point. The only major benefit to this cost per second is that if the target moves, you can move this dot somewhere else and it doesn't really cost you anything extra. Keep this up at all times. Very handy. Lots of damage. Don't let it run out if you can help it. Now, technically speaking, that on the ground, that on the ground, these 2 on single target. Your duration is huge on all of those damage over time abilities. So now you just spam and weave. It looks complicated to start with, but believe me, it's not that bad because the durations on these skills are so long, you've got a massive amount of time to think. Speaking of which, the ultimate. This is absolutely bonkers. On the DK, you have a banner, which is standard of might, by the way, not the other one, this one. And it puts a big, big circle on the ground with loads and loads of fire every 1 second for 20 seconds. Major defiles the target, meaning the healing is nuked. And if you're standing inside of it, you will increase your damage you do and reduce the damage you take. So if your damage over time is already on target and you drop this, everything just ramped up. So don't drop this straight away with no damage being placed. Already have something going on. Also, it has a synergy attached to it, which people can take, and is a big, big burst of flame and area of effect and immobilizes targets. But essentially, this is your go moment. You drop this and you start hitting really hard. And it's got an extra bonus. Because of the Elfbane set, this does last longer. Now, with any of these skills here that last longer, they don't technically do any more damage. You just cast less often and continue the same amount of damage. But because this does a huge amount of damage, and it can only be used when your ultimate is ready rather than being consistent and never running out, you do get a burst out of this. You get an extra boost of 5 seconds worth of damage. It says 20 there, your ultimate lasts 25. Bear in mind, however, this also comes into play with other ultimates. So if you chose to use the Meteor Shooting Star variant, that actually does increase the duration for the damage over time on the ground. When you use your Destro ulti, that actually has 7 seconds duration there, which is altered to... Where's it gone? Should be 9. No, not 9. Miles off. It should be... Let's put it on the bar. It should technically be 12. Get out of combat. There we go. So in combat, that has 12 seconds, which is bonkers. Now, the Destro ulti didn't outperform the banner, but if you are going from fight to fight to fight and it's quite bursting, you don't really have a moment of opportunity to sit in a banner for 25 seconds, that can be a very, very viable option. And it does hit incredibly hard, especially over a 12-second period. And the cost is the same. So the choice really is yours, but for most everyday scenarios, you want to use this because it just ramps up everything you've got as well as being quite aggressive itself. Okay, now it's time for passives. Ardent Flame is obviously the most beneficial skill line for us because we are utilizing almost everything, but you want to make sure you get all the passives regardless, unless it's not being used. These definitely are. Combustion is incredibly important. Any poison or burning status effect that we apply is 50% stronger on this class. No other class can out-damage us on burning or poison status effects. It's absolutely nuts. We will have both all the time. We'll have burning all the time from our set and our skills, and we'll also have poison because we are actually using a poison glyph on our weapon, and glyphs have a 20% chance to apply status effect outside of extra buffs and bonuses that enhance that. We have passives in our Destro skill, we have passives in our champion points that further enhance that to quite a dramatic rate, so we will have the poison status effect most of the time, and that is now stronger. Also, if you apply burning or poisoned, and they're on separate cooldowns, you will actually gain back 1,000 of that resource. So poison is technically a physical damage type, so you'll get stamina back. Burning is a magical damage type, so you'll get magicka back. And this can happen once every 3 seconds. So as long as we keep applying burning and poison, we're going to constantly fill our bars. It is bonkers. Get this maxed as soon as possible. This will give you a benefit if you do direct damage with Ardent Flame abilities, which will remove some of their movement speed, so it will reduce it by 30%. Technically speaking, the whip is of course direct damage, but while the damage over time to these two skills is not direct, their initial hit is, so they also do affect this passive, or get affected by it. Increases the damage over time done by Fiery Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities by 25%, and the duration by 4 seconds. So they're at max at the moment, but that is a big, big boost to your damage, so get that when you can. And of course, increases your damage done with fire and poison attacks. By default, as a Dragonknight, your fire and poison is stronger. Draconic Power, we're not really using any of these abilities here. You could arguably fit in Burning Talons instead of Wall of Elements because it's technically stronger, but the problem is it's so bloody expensive that even with Elfbane being a 9-second uptime instead of 4, it's still going to nuke your resources. That is a choice you can mess with later if you prefer, but just mind yourself because tanks may or may not want you to use that. For the purpose of this video, we're not using it, but if you wanted more damage and you can micromanage it, you can. However, all swings and roundabouts, you're going to gain to lose in some way. But since we're not technically using any skills in here, there's a couple that are a bit redundant. So this increases your amount of damage you can block. Take that. That's a passive you get regardless. This will give you a healing bonus to healing received if you have an ability in this skill line active. Currently, we do not. We've got none. So that's irrelevant unless you choose any of these skills at a later date. You could use a heal if you wanted to remove one damage skill, but I wouldn't remove this or this. I would personally probably move Unstable Wall if you really had to, because Eruption's going to out-trump it as far as damage is concerned a little bit, or you could just swap that out. It's entirely up to you. If you really, really, really need a heal, and you can't micromanage this because you may be at range and you can't recast it, or the whip isn't on off balance at the moment, you can do, but you are going to sacrifice some damage. It's not a lot, but you will sacrifice some. If you are using that or that in those situations, you can benefit from this, and you can also benefit from the health recovery for it being on your bar. Again, that is a choice. That's not how we're strictly set up. Now, this does benefit you regardless, however. This one, only if you've got a skill. This one, even if you don't have a skill, your melee range attacks are increased by 2 meters. 5 meters is the basic melee range. That means that all of our close quarter stuff is 7 meters instead of 5. So we can step back a little bit. Really handy. And your physical and spell resistance is enhanced at base. So this one is the only one that's really redundant here, unless you're using these skills. The rest of them, get them. Earth and Heart is very important, but these have changed a little bit. So this increases the duration of your Earth and Heart abilities. That's why Eruption is so bloody long in the first place. That's now even longer for us. But get that as soon as you can. Battle Roar is just priceless. Get this as soon as you possibly can. Any ultimate you use, for every point of ultimate it costs, you will get back health, magicka, and stamina. That's why I said earlier, make sure you've got damage already running before you fire your ultimate. Not only because it can ramp up the damage you were already doing, but because you want to spend some resources before you get them back. If you use an ultimate when you're max resources, then you missed an opportunity to gain back your resources by casting it, and now it might be tricky staggering between ultimates to maintain your bar while it gradually goes down, waiting for the next one. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you give minor brutality to you and your group, increasing their weapon damage by 10. And this happens for 20 seconds. Bear in mind, this actually lasts 18 at base. So technically, if you're keeping up the basic time, you will have that buff with you and your group all the time. Since this has a longer duration because of Elfbane now, obviously there'll be a gap. But if you're mindful of it, then hopefully you can maintain that and give that to your group all the time. Unless someone else is already doing it. But if you're in combat, if you use this ability at least once every 6 seconds, then you can benefit from an ulti regen bonus of 3 each time you do it, but it's with a gap. You can't do it any quicker than 6 seconds. Again, it doesn't make sense to recast this all the time, especially with the 10-second gap between the burst that it applies, but you won't be negatively impacted if you do overcast this by accident, and you could end up with ulti gain from it. So you'll lack by not using the whip. You might overlap this, but it won't cost you any extra because it's per second. So micromanage that if you wish. This is one of the most awesome passives in the game, and for this build, it's feckin' useless. So, technically, this was buffed. If you are using a magicka costing ability, as long as it is higher than 1120 magicka, you'll get stamina back for casting it. But if your skill is cheaper than that, you won't get this bonus. So if you were casting Igneous Shields, for example, or even Molten Weapons, anything like that, then Igneous Shields is here, by the way. If you're casting this or any variant of this skill, that costs more than you gain. So you cast that, you get stamina back. For anyone using that in the past, you just got buffed because it used to be 990 and now it's 1120. So you get more stam for your job now. But since this was changed to cost per second a while ago, this one was a bit broken. You could cast this over and over and over and over and over for no negative effect and constantly get this back. So they did change it so that the cost is relevant. If this cost more than 1.2k or 1.1k, then you'd get back, but now you don't. So they did make it so you couldn't quite cheese that anymore. But for anything else in this skill line, that's going to benefit you. For this build, however, don't bother with the passive. Destro Staff, very important. We're using a Destro Staff. Understand these. If you use a heavy attack with a Flame Staff, it will do 12% more damage than it usually would with any other weapon. Single target hit, might crit, might not. Be careful. But if you need it to get your resources back, you got a benefit there. You have 10% increased pen for your Destro Staff abilities. So your light attack, your heavy attack, your wall of elements. We've got so much penetration, this isn't even a problem, but get it anyway, just in case buffs and bonuses aren't available. This will increase your chance to apply status effects if you hold a Destro Staff. We do. 100% chance on top of the 20% chance that you already get from the proc for status effect from your poison glyph is not 120%. It's 40%. 20 times 100%. You're doubling it. But also everything else is contributing there as well. So all of your status chances have been enhanced. Using an Inferno Staff will increase your damage done with single target abilities. Now, this is where it gets a little technical. The initial burst from this ability is area of effect. It's direct, but it's area of effect. The damage over time is per target, so that counts as single target. This is single target. The damage that you do from your glyph is single target. This and this is not, but your whip is. So your whip, your damage over time from these two, and your burn and status effects and your glyph are all going to benefit from using a Flame Staff because you will increase that damage by 10% for holding it. Bear in mind, obviously, the Lightning Staff contributes towards AoE abilities. So we're talking all the damage over time on the ground, not the damage over time on single target, but the initial burst also does contribute. So understand the different types of damage as to which weapon would benefit you more. For this build, obviously the Flame Staff, we're doing loads of fire, but if you were using a more AoE built setup, that would contribute differently. Also bear in mind our light attacks and heavy attacks are also single target. So now we've got light armor. We are using 6 pieces of light armor. These benefits here, pluses and minuses actually, so you've got bonuses and penalties. They can be read in your own time. They vary depending on how many pieces you've got. That is just how light armor is. Light armor and heavy armor have passive bonuses that stay with them the whole time. Medium is more active. If you don't move, you won't get the benefits. But you can read through those in your own time. These ones, however, are the ones you need to buy. These are important. This reduces the effectiveness of snares against you, so you're quite fast per piece. Reduces the cost of sprint. Increases your mag recovery and reduction to cost for skills. Increases your resistances massively. And also increases your crit chance. So 219 is 1%. And increases your physical and spell penetration. As you can see there, we've got more spell pen and physical pen than Major Breach, but that stacks. We're using no medium armor pieces at the moment, but if you did choose other setups that I spoke about earlier in the gear section, then you could benefit from these. They're going to give you nice recovery bonuses to your bar and give you a flat weapon and spell damage increase and crit damage increase. So your maintenance on that bar is covered, plus a tiny bit of extra damage. But again, you're going to sacrifice your penetration and recovery, so it's up to you. We are using one heavy piece for now, which gives you some minor bonuses for using the one piece. Resistances, health recovery. When you take damage, you get resources back. Extra health, of course. And you get more back from your heavy attacks if you do need to, as well as healing received. Now, you do want to take advantage of your Undaunted passives because they're very, very useful. If you take any synergy, you get resources back. Don't leave them on the ground for somebody else. Take the synergies. Every single one is beneficial, whether it be a heal, damage output, damage shield, whatever. All synergies that are from a player are useful. And for using 2 different types of armor, because we are, you will get 2% of all your resources per type. So you have a maximum increase of 4% for using heavy and light. You could argue that you could change the shoulder piece to a medium if you wanted to, but then you're going to lose a lot of penetration and you're going to gain a small amount of crit damage. That is up to you, but resource management will be a little different. Actually worked out to be barely any different at all, so you don't really need to alter that if you don't want to. We are a high elf, of course. If you activate an ability that is Magicka, you will gain stamina. The other way round also works. If you have a larger stam bar than your mag bar, if you use a stamina skill, you get magic back. But for us, if we use magic abilities, we get stamina. Simple as that. And also if you're using any channeled abilities, you will take less damage. That only affects us during a heavy attack. Increase Magicka by 2k. Weapon and spell damage increased by 2.58, or 258 in fact. That is just a load of flat bonuses and some nice management there. You are not restricted to race. You can choose any race you like. We are not hitting cap crit damage unless we have Major Brittle in the group. So if you really wanted to, you could go Khajiit just to get the 10% extra crit damage. You can cap out nice and easy. You could be a Dark Elf and not really have any extra benefit to that. Just have some resources on both sides of the coin. You could benefit from anything you like. There's lots of different minor passives that races have that could benefit your play style. But personally, for this particular build, using the High Elf just for the flat damage bonuses. Even an Orc would work out. You just won't have the extra Magicka, but you will have the extra health and you'll heal from doing damage. There's always plus and minuses to races. They're not game breaking. Take your pick. One thing that is game breaking is this. Medicinal use. We're using tripods. That means we get major fortitude, major endurance, and major intellect all the time as long as we keep activating our potions. Use them all the time. Don't let them run out. They are consumable buffs. Now we're going to go into champion points. These are quite straightforward. Basically, don't panic. If you're new to this, these yellowy white ones there that sit there doing nothing, they do that. They sit there doing nothing. They're passives. Every single person in the entire game can gain access to those and put them on any build they like. But the important ones are the blue ones here. There are 4 slottables that you can take advantage of at any point in time, but there are lots to choose from. You can only slot 4 at once. And what we've done here is we've slotted the ones that were most useful for this particular setup. This one you can change, however. So unlock this first of all for 10 points, and then you get this tree. Start with this, so you've got weapon and spell damage increase overall for all damage types. Then you've got increased critical damage against flanking targets. So if you're to the side or behind them, you'll get extra critical damage, but if you're not, then you want to swap to this one instead, because then you'll get that all the time in return, which is an 8% bonus rather than 10. Not much in it, obviously. Want to use this for everyday use, I guess, but if you are behind the target at all times, then of course you can go backstabber instead. Slot these 2 as soon as possible. Even if they're not max, just get them unlocked. Then go into this tree, unlock this, and then we'll unlock this tree. Here, you want to focus on deadly aim for single target attacks and master at arms for direct damage. That will take advantage of all the direct hits that come from all of your skills when you first activate them, your light attacks, your heavy attacks, and your whip. Apart from that, get the rest in your own time. As you can see, I haven't even slotted any resistances or anything. They will come in time. You don't have to have max champion points or even close to it to get these. Just take your time, do what you need to do for now, and unlock the 4 slottables, and then gradually build up as you go. The 4 slottables are the most important things for any setup. Now, these are not even slotted, so the original part where I showed you the health bonuses and everything is actually incorrect. So let's go and put these in. Those are what I usually use. So you've got recovery bonus, that was correct. You've got extra armor, and you've got extra health. They don't take any more points to get that. Now, what you want to do is come into here. Put some points into here. And into here. And then you can max this out. And this will unlock this tree here. I would encourage you to put this skill in, which is Siphon and Spells. Whenever you get kills, you get magic back. Nice and easy. Again, the rest of them are not game breaking. Put them in your own time. They will be unlocked. You don't need max champion points or even close to get them. But the 4 slottables are the most important. We'll show you our actual stats in a minute. Now, this tree here is all quality of life, so this doesn't make any difference to combat. But, I mean, quality of life is what it is. If you go up this way, unlock this, max it out, you will use your charges slower because you have a chance not to even consume any of it, and it's less costly on your soul gems. This will give you higher quality loot from chests. Again, not combat related. This will make your food last longer. It's better for your bank. This will give you a chance to use potions but not even consume one. So again, better for the bank. And this one here will make you faster between fights. So if you're not in combat right now, you run quicker. That's helpful when you're trying to go for speed runs and such, if you are maybe held up a little bit in one of the fights and you want to get to the next one quite quick. Again, though, these are not game breaking for any form of content whatsoever. Take your time, unlock them, and just when they're done, they're done. Now, to look at the stats again properly, because we did flump that at the beginning. My bad. We actually have 24.5k max health, and our resistances are 22.9 and 18.5, so we're tanky as hell. We don't even have a minor resolve there, so that will push us to roughly 25, 26, and roughly 21, 22 on the other side. So we are pretty strong. Now, rotation. What do? Do we want to make it really complicated? No, we don't. Right. That needs to be down on the ground. This needs to be down on the ground. Those 2 must be up at all times. Now, bear in mind, obviously, we're not in combat, so the duration is a little skew-if, but when you are in combat, that's when these will be longer. So what you need to do is you need to be able to track your skills. go into options, go down to combat, and put ability bar timers on. That way, look at my bar, you can see how long is left. When that gets down to 0, recast it. Or if the target moves, obviously cast it with a target. This one is key. Your wall of elements must be down at all times. This one's not the end of the world if it runs out, but it is good damage, so keep it there. Now, while they are active, you want to make sure that the target you are hitting, or multiple targets, by the way, because as you can see here, this heal that's giving me all the time, every 2 seconds, you don't get that just once. You put it on 2 targets, or 3 targets. Look at the heals. Constant. And if you hit it again, it will claim the heal. It will give you the whole lot at once. Anyway. When you're in combat, Elfbane will kick in. As you can see, that's 24 seconds. And as you can see, this is 15. Track those. Just keep it on. I don't need to do anything right now. They will just constantly be firing. While they're running, make sure that your target that you're trying to kill has this on it. So your burning embers and your breath. As you can see, when these are on, so activate them all, you've now got a long period of time where nothing's happening. The first one to run out is the shortest time, which is Wall of Elements. When that hits down to 0, reapply it. The rest is still running. I'm not doing anything right now. Oh, one's going to run out. Reapply it. Still got 6 seconds on the other ones. That's going to run out. Reapply. 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 And rinse repeat. That's it. Just keep an eye on them and keep running. Now, in between that is your filler. So, start off with this and your wall. Then you want your breath and your embers. So again, where did they go? Thank you. Ground dots first. Single target dot and breath next. And then light whip, over and over and over. And constantly do that. Just keep going. As soon as one of those gets down to 0, reapply it. And go back to it. If your ultimate is ready, drop it. Keep light attack whipping all day long. And reapply the dots when they run out. And that's it. You don't have to do it in a very specific order. You just have to maintain them. That's all you need to do. Every time they're about to hit 0, recast it. Simple as that. So dot, breath, embers, light attack and whip all day long. Now just bear in mind, there is some micromanaging involved when it comes to your survival. So if you do get in trouble, you can recast your burning embers. As you can see here, any recast that I do is going to give me the dot, tick, and the initial hit both at the same time. That's a 9k heal with no buffs. We do that on the big dummy. 15. 21. And there's your special whip. Your whip does a backflip if the target is off balance and you constantly heal. So don't panic while you're doing this. Keeping up your basic dots, your 4 dots, which heal you too. If you start doing backflips, don't panic. You're healing and you're hitting harder. So on the dummy again, it will look like that. And as soon as anything goes down to 0, recast. That is about as complicated as any of my 1-bar builds are going to get. They are designed to make things easier for you, so you have more time to pay attention to mechanics. And while this rotation may seem complicated because you've got 5 skills actively being used, they are so long that while they're doing their work, even if we have to go range and do some heavy attacks and stuff, you've got all that time that the damage is still going on for you to pay attention to mechanics. All that time. Doing circles around the enemy, and it's only now that my Wall of Elements has run out. That was only 1 skill in 15 seconds. Granted, you should be light weaving with your whip, but if you are in trouble, doesn't matter because everything is still working. It gives you time. Now, I guess it's time for fashion. We got to show off our costume. So we are wearing mostly Ancient Daedric, I believe, which is a medium helmet, a heavy shoulders. Possibly there? Yep. light gloves, and there are some obscure ones in between. So we've got Sapient Greaves there, which is a heavy. It looks like a skirt, granted, but it's a heavy one. We've got Dreadsail Sash, which is a light one. And we've also got this, which I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce. Someone can do that in the comment section. Spell it out really slowly for me. Wake and Flame Shoes. And we've got this really special Spellscar Staff. That is not that easy to acquire because it was a purchase for a promotional event. But if you've got it, great. If you don't, use whatever you like. Now, the colors we're using, realistically, are mostly just black. I think we've used Obsidian Black for the most part, which is kind of a grayish color. So we just made them a bit bland, but if you like it, go nuts. That's the color we're using. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build. It is a 1-bar build, obviously, but it has been designed to make things least complicated as possible, at the same time as giving you everything you need. So if you are stuck, obviously there'll be a written guide as well, and you've got lots of choices for gear. Once again, anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing on this channel already, I'm now about to hit 70k. Hit the button, it's free. If you want to help support on social media, there are some links in the description for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the website zonogaming.com, where all the written guides are, including this one. Just hit the socials button there. There's loads of stuff. And of course, you can support financially on Patreon, where you can get access to the private Discord channel and loads of other perks as well. That's also linked below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.